Now, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be continuing our series on the different arcs from the Clone Wars by taking a look at the results of the poll for the Maul Returns arc, and then comparing it to the results of all the other arcs we've done thus far. After which I'll then be reading and responding to some of your comments, but there won't be any artwork shown off this week because, well, I really haven't had that much sent in to me lately, so what was sent in will be saved and shown off in a future video. And before we get to the results, just a reminder, you can already nominate or vote for which arc we do next. All you gotta do is head down and respond to the pinned comment below with your suggestion, or vote with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Okay, that said, let's now take a look at the results, where we'll see that 69% of people gave the Maul Returns arc 5 stars and thought it was amazing. 25% of people gave it 4 stars and thought it was good. 4% thought it was about average and gave it 3 stars. Which then left 1% to give it 2 stars, and a final 1% to give it 1 star and thought it was terrible. Which then means when we do all the math here, the Maul Returns arc ends up with an average score of 4.60 and puts it into 3rd place overall, 0.03 of a point behind the Umbara arc. And I can't say I'm all too surprised by these results, as we'll talk about in a minute or two when we get to the comments. Bringing back Maul was easily one of the best ideas or decisions this show ever made. And of the roughly 800 comments that were left on this poll, I don't recall reading a single one that didn't like or didn't ultimately agree with the decision to bring him back, though there were certainly some who talked about their initial skepticism when it was first announced. Anyway, before we do get to those, let me just take that quick moment to say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches the videos. I do appreciate it. And let's now start, as we always do, with the top-rated comment, which this time came to us from Star Wars 34, who said, The chains are the easy part, it's what goes on in here that's hard." And this, of course, is a quote taken from Maul, where he's referring to his head or his mind. It's a comment about how the challenges or obstacles of the mind are greater than those of the body, even though he has literally been cut in half. And Maul's biggest issue mentally is he's consumed by vengeance. He not only wants to kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he wants to break him. He wants to see him suffer. And until Kenobi does, which Maul never actually succeeds at doing this, well, he makes him suffer, but he doesn't kill him, he can't put himself back together. Maul can't ever be a whole person mentally. And kind of going along with all this, we have this comment from Sapphire Dragon 8, who said, "Definitely 5 stars. Bringing back Maul was an amazing decision by the Clone Wars team, as him being back developed his character, showing how smart and evil he truly was, especially when he slaughtered an entire village just to get Kenobi's attention." We also had this comment from Madden Lame, who said, "Maul was a cool Sith in The Phantom Menace that didn't get a lot of screen time, and bringing him back from the dead was a very bold move that was executed flawlessly, making him one of the most tragic and fleshed out characters in all of Star Wars. This arc did all of that for him. Easy 5 out of 5. We also had this one from Year-Long Giant, who said, "It was a great decision by George Lucas to revive Maul, as he was a lackluster character in The Phantom Menace, in my opinion. The Clone Wars added so much more depth and personality to him outside of a dark-sider with devilish tattoos." Then we also had this one from The Typical Life of Cousins, who said, "Bringing back a character that has quote-unquote died is a risky move, but the Clone Wars succeeded. The Clone Wars did more than bring Maul back, it made him a character." And though the Clone Wars series certainly accomplished a lot of things in its time, I mean, there are some truly fantastic episodes, moments, characters, and so on, I think its greatest feat just might be what it did for Darth Maul. Everyone who can remember the Phantom Menace hype before that movie came out, or seeing the teaser trailer for the very first time, will remember seeing Maul and likely thinking, this is a character that looks amazing, and not being able to wait to see him in the actual movie. And don't get me wrong, Duel of the Fates, the battle against Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, was incredible. It's arguably the best lightsaber battle of all time, but just having a cool fight and looking cool yourself or having a great design doesn't make you a great character. And I think there were a lot of disappointed fans after episode 1. A lot of people who either wanted more from him in that movie, or for him to have lived on so we could have seen him in the later films. And so I think in general there were a lot of fans that were just open to the idea of Maul somehow surviving and coming back, because it felt like so much wasted potential there. Fans that usually don't like the idea of bringing back a character that clearly should have or did die, but were more open to it in this case. That then brings us to this comment from Nidhogg13, who said, "What got me about it was that I was expecting a pure fan service cash grab when it was announced, but I ended up being genuinely impressed with what they did with the character." And though, as I was just saying, I myself, and I think others, were open to the idea of Maul somehow returning because of all that wasted potential, I was skeptical. This could have easily gone south or come off feeling like a cash grab, as you say. This could have gone wrong in any number of ways. But instead of being a gimmick, instead of bringing back Maul for just another flashy battle or two, even though he did have another flashy lightsaber battle or two, or three, or even four, it was all about telling a good story with him. All about fleshing out this character, and that's simply why it ultimately worked. Moving on now, we have this comment from Fluffy Panda, who said, "I thought the idea was silly to revive Maul. I thought they would mess it up. It seemed like a guarantee that it would be stupid and not make sense, but they worked their Clone Wars magic and shaped the concept into something I look back at fondly. Great arc and a fun watch." We also had this comment from Giancarlo, who said, "The arc dives deep explaining why Darth Maul lives. He used his anger to fuel himself to keep surviving throughout the years." And I agree. I think the fact that Maul is so fueled by hatred for Kenobi, by this desire for revenge upon him, that it really helps explain, as well as it ever could, how he survived being cut in half and then falling who knows how far, and then making his way to essentially a garbage planet. And that's because using your emotions, especially the negative ones, fuels the dark side. And Maul was so fueled by vengeance and hate that he was literally able to keep himself alive to survive a wound that is otherwise going to be fatal 100% of the time. Alright, next up then we have this comment from Blitz GNU, who said, "I really liked it because I thought Maul's death in episode 1 was very unsatisfying. So it was nice to see him again, although I feel like Savage became more of a plot device when Maul returned. Another good thing is that both Maul and Obi-Wan were very relatable, and Obi-Wan's character got a lot more depth through his struggle due to his anger. In addition, it was an interesting idea to bring in a third powerful party during the Clone Wars, the Republic, the Separatists, and Maul's crime syndicate. I also like seeing Ventress again. I wish we had gotten more of her. A 5-star arc for me." We also had this comment from Jack of All Claws, who said, "A+ minus the admittedly semi-one-note writing of Savage Opress. The rest of it was equal parts terrifying and somewhat tragic." And overall, I did like Savage Opress, even though, yeah, he was mostly used as a plot device to bring back Maul. But I did like his combat style. I liked him using brute strength combined with using a lightsaber. I also thought his death was handled very well. Yet another thing Maul loses along the way of his tragic life. And throughout the course of his life, as far as we ever know or see, his brother was really the only thing he ever seemed to care about. Next up then we had this comment from Majmo, who said, "The best part of Ventress, I really like when she is with Obi-Wan, and the combat is great." Also this comment from Purple Pawn, who said, "Maul returning is great and all, but don't forget we got Obi-Wan teaming up with Ventress and then with Hondo." And we definitely can't forget about Ventress and Kenobi teaming up. Those two have some of the best chemistry in the entire show, and their battle together against Savage and Maul is one of the best saber fights in the whole series, not just because it looked awesome, but because the banter was top notch, and it was great to see those two just on the same side for once. Next up then we have this comment from Nathan Marmaduke, who said, "Sam as Darth Maul is possibly the best voice acting I have ever heard. I thought Clone Wars couldn't possibly get better after this arc. Then Maul took over Mandalore." We also had this comment from Philippe Kozlowski, who said, "Sam Witwer's voice performance as Maul makes this arc even better than it already was." And I do have to agree that Sam Witwer's performance as Maul is incredible. He has really made the character his own. He has kind of become Darth Maul, along with Ray Park, who is of course the physical side of Maul, playing him in The Phantom Menace, and then again in Solo, and doing the motion capture for him in the Siege of Mandalore arc in the Clone Wars. The only downside is that Peter Serafinowicz, who voiced him in The Phantom Menace, has sort of become the odd man out of this equation. He even did the lines for him in Solo, but they went with Witwer instead at the last moment, without even telling him until after the movie came out. And Lucasfilm just said it made more sense for continuity's sake, which I do have to agree with. Serafinowicz did a couple lines in The Phantom Menace, while Witwer has done many different episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels, and again has really just kind of made the character his own in the process. Alright, and now let's do just a few more comments before wrapping this up, starting with this one from ATC Productions, who said, "This arc showed me how dark the show can get, and really cemented me as a fan of it. As a kid, I loved the animated movie, and it was part of the reason I fell in love with Star Wars, even though looking back at it, it wasn't that great. I didn't get into the show until I was a bit older, and as an adult now, that arc is also one of my favorites because of Maul's characterization. I love that Star Wars can have a very dark tone at times, but also have the light-hearted, hopeful stuff. That's the best part of Star Wars in my mind. Then we had this comment from Bean Dip who said, "This is just based on my initial reaction. I felt that it was kind of lazy and I really didn't care about a character that had all of 3 lines in a feature film. However, I feel like I was proven wrong throughout the series and that Maul is actually a pretty interesting character." Then this comment from Jose Sanchez who said, "I really enjoyed how they gave Maul a bigger role than just being an assassin." Then we also had this comment from Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's a bit on the longer side, but I felt if anyone deserved to have a say on the matter, it was Maul's archenemy, so feel free to pause and give it a read if you'd like. And finally, here we have this comment from Taylor Lynn who said, "Dave Filoni was able to forge a definitive character out of Maul, an assassin which had only one significant duel and no in-movie development. His injuries, both physical and psychological, make sense in universe, and how he survived and went to a junkyard planet to be found by his brother holds up. The scene in which Talzin repairs his legs and soul is fantastic, and the way he shattered Kenobi's morale and forced him from a defensive warrior to one of raw passion and emotion gets me. Seeing Obi-Wan sweating and swinging with no grace because of Maul is powerful storytelling. Couple that with the dialogue and the stunning visuals, and you get an easy A of an arc. Only real complaint I have is how Savage Opress was a little lacking by comparison to Maul." And very well said. I don't really have anything to add to that other than to say that I again think it may have been one of the best decisions or ideas Clone Wars ever ran with, bringing back Maul I mean. And as much as I love the Twin Sons episode of Rebels where Obi-Wan kills Maul once and for all, most likely anyway, it is almost a shame that happened now that we're going to get the Kenobi series on Disney+, which I think would have made an even better place for that final duel. But either way, I'm happy we got this arc, and I'm happy we got more Darth Maul in general. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think of the Maul return arc, or what I or anyone else had to say about it here in this video. Or you can also nominate or vote for which arc we do next. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.